Hey everyone, and welcome to today's Explainer. Let's just jump right in, because today we're unpacking something with absolutely massive stakes for the future of our digital lives, our money, and honestly, our personal freedom. We're looking at the massive intersection of blockchain adoption in Latin America and this groundbreaking new technological concept called rational privacy.
So here's a thought. Is total transparency actually the biggest enemy of global crypto adoption? I mean, for years now, right? We've been told that a public, hyper-transparent blockchain is the ultimate fix for everything. It's like the golden rule of Web3. But today, we're going to flip that assumption on its head and see why radical transparency might actually be the very thing holding global adoption back.
Take a look at this insight from Daniel Marquez. He's a systems engineer and the head of Latman for Midnight. He says, it can be just as dangerous for a person in a neighborhood if they know I received $500 from my family. Envy can be negative. Just let that sink in for a second. A totally public ledger means literally anyone with an internet connection can snoop on every single transaction you make. In a lot of places, especially across Latin America, that lack of on-chain privacy isn't just, a minor annoyance. It can literally put a target on a vulnerable person's back.
Okay, here's our roadmap to figuring this all out. We're going to hit the transparency paradox, look at why LATAM is adopting crypto out of necessity, unpack this idea of rational privacy, look at some real-world cases with remittances and voting, touch on sovereign digital identity, and then wrap up with a private, multi-consensus future. Let's get into it.
All right, part 1, the transparency paradox and why we actually have a good reason to fear public ledgers.
It's a crazy dilemma, right? Blockchain's biggest selling point, the fact that it's this immutable public record, has ironically become the biggest roadblock for real-world use. On one side, you've got institutional fear, like what corporate CFO in their right mind is going to publicly expose their entire payroll and balance sheet for all their competitors to scrutinize? Literally none of them, they'd have a complete panic attack. But then on the flip side, you have personal fear. Everyday people risk getting targeted by extortionists or even authoritarian states if their financial lives are totally public. The huge takeaway here: whether you're a massive corporation or just a regular citizen, everybody absolutely needs a baseline of privacy.
Moving on to part 2, Latin America, which is basically adoption by necessity and the ultimate real-world testing ground.
So, why focus on Latin America? Well, it's the perfect landscape to test these technologies because you essentially have two completely different extremes driving adoption. Down in Argentina and Venezuela, people are jumping into crypto purely out of necessity. We're talking hyperinflation, broken trust, and total institutional collapse. They literally just need a way to protect their hard-earned money. But then, look over at Brazil. Their adoption is totally different. It's driven by top-down innovation, clear regulations, and state-backed tech. It just goes to show how adaptable folks in LATAM are. They're ready for systemic change, whether it's pushed by the government or chosen as an escape hatch.
I mean, just look at this number, 79%. To put that in perspective, that is the chunk of the Brazilian population that adopted the Pix payment system in just a single year during the COVID pandemic. Almost 80%. That demonstrates an absolutely massive, undeniable appetite for digital finance when the infrastructure is actually built to work for the people using it.
Which brings us to part 3, the power of rational privacy, or what we like to call the pragmatic blockchain. Now, this is where things get really interesting, because we need a bridge between absolute dark web secrecy and total terrifying transparency. Enter Midnight. It's positioned as the pragmatic blockchain built specifically to solve this exact transparency paradox. It does this by offering a very specific type of privacy, one that actually still allows for full regulatory compliance.
So let's nail down what this actually means. Rational privacy is a system that lets you safeguard your sensitive personal data. But, and this is absolutely key, it still provides a view key to regulators, banks, or auditors to prove you're playing by the rules. We gotta be super clear here. This isn't some shady loophole meant to hide illegal activity. It is a fundamental, legitimate tool required for mainstream adoption. It lets a business or a user say, hey, my data is private, but if the law requires an audit, I can grant secure, read-only access.
To make sense of the heavy cryptography behind this stuff like zero-knowledge proofs, ecosystem ambassador Lucas Machiavelli uses this awesome analogy. Let's say you want to buy alcohol. Normally, you hand over your ID, giving the cashier your exact birthday, home address, full name, the whole shebang. But with selective disclosure, you just generate a cryptographic proof that essentially just states, yep, I'm over 18. The seller verifies the math, knows you're of legal age, and never sees a single piece of your underlying personal data.
You prove it without actually showing it.
All right, part 4, real cases. Let's look at remittances and votes, where this privacy matters the most.
Let's pull these abstract tech concepts down to earth with some deeply human stories happening right now in LatAm. First up, remittances. Millions of people live abroad and send money back home to their families. By keeping those exact transaction amounts selectively hidden, we're actually protecting those receiving families from local envy or worse, extortion. So the big takeaway here? Hiding a simple $500 transfer from a nosy or dangerous neighbor isn't money laundering. It is literally a matter of personal security. And then there's voting. Check out this fascinating story from Rodrigo Yarzu. He points out that Peru tried investigating a blockchain setup for presidential elections, and it completely crashed. Guess why? Transparency. A public ledger meant your vote was public, which is flat out unconstitutional. It's the perfect example of how, without built-in privacy, basic democratic rights like a secret ballot are just impossible on-chain. If blockchain technology is ever going to run national elections, rational privacy isn't just a nice-to-have, it's a hard requirement.
Section 5, Sovereign Digital Identity, which is all about taking back your data.
Looking at the evolution of the internet, we arrive at what might be the absolute most vital concept for everyday users. Let's trace this timeline really quick together. In the Web 2 era, we happily handed all our data over to massive corporate monopolies just to get free access to their platforms. And you know the saying, if the product is free, you are the product. Then, the W3C introduces official standards where decentralized digital identity starts to emerge. And now, finally, with networks like Midnight, we're reaching a future where users actually control, prove, and selectively disclose their own credentials. We are finally taking the power back.
To see how incredibly powerful this is in practice, look at Mercosur credit portability. Imagine a citizen moving from Argentina to Brazil. They need a local loan or an apartment. Using selective disclosure, they can prove to a Brazilian bank that they have a spotless credit history without ever revealing a single specific personal purchase they've ever made. This is exactly how digital identity can help bank the unbanked and let people live modern, nomadic, cross-border lives without ever sacrificing their privacy.
And finally, Part 6, a private multi-consensus future and ending crypto tribalism. For this last piece, let's talk about how Midnight wants to unify an industry that is notoriously divided. Enter the Minotaur Protocol. It's a multi-consensus approach that actually lets users from any blockchain network tap into these privacy features. Midnight is literally throwing the doors wide open for everyone. They're trying to eliminate maximalism. You know that stubborn mindset that your favorite network has to destroy all the others? Instead, any user on any chain can be protected. It turns privacy into a fundamental human right, rather than some exclusive perk locked to just one single platform.
So I'm going to leave you with a final, provocative question to chew on. In a world where absolutely every digital action you take is tracked, monetized, and stored in massive databases, are you ready to reclaim your right to selective disclosure? Think about your own data footprint for a second. The tools for rational privacy are finally here, and they're completely changing the game. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I really hope it sparked your curiosity to explore this massive shift in digital freedom.